think about policy in the city as how do you have events and social life in your neighborhood, but also be able to go when you want to visit friends and family in other neighborhoods. I grew up in West Seattle, across the water there, and I live on Capitol Hill. And so transportation is something that we spend a lot of effort thinking about. But I think that that's true. You do sort of concentrate in your neighborhood a bit. But as the city gets larger as well, that changes, I think, the way that people talk to each other and visit one another.
One of our city departments is a department of neighborhood. And at last count, I think last year, our Department of Neighborhoods identified 122 distinct neighborhoods that make up the city of Seattle. That number fluctuates, but sometimes some people decide that they want to create their own neighborhood. And so, but last year, at one point in time, it was about 122 neighborhoods. And the other statistic for Seattle last year is that in 2014, Seattle was the fastest growing large metropolitan city in the United States. And so we are a city that's really just in a period of transformation. So we are fast growing. We are anticipating over the next 10 years, I think about 120,000 more people coming into the city. And as Councilmember O'Brien knows very well, as does the mayor, that kind of growth and prosperity is very exciting, but it's also creating a lot of pressures, especially for our younger people, our younger professionals, a lot of young people just graduating from college, thinking about whether or not they can afford to live in a big city. And so we have city leaders like our mayor, like Councilmember O'Brien and others who are actually looking at that issue right now so that, in the United States, we call it the phenomenon of the disappearing middle class, and wanting to make sure that we have policies in place so that a young person who is in their early 20s today, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when maybe they have their children in school, won't be priced out, that's the word, priced out of living in a major city like Seattle and not taking advantage of all of the public amenities that come with that.
It's an interesting comparison, I think, between the United States and France and the type of government and politics is that you have in France the pour les logements pour les étudiants. So we don't have something like this. This is a program in France where students get funds from the government if they for housing for their students. So the central government in France does that. It just doesn't work that way here because of the nature of federalism. If you've studied in any different American politics at all, you understand that France is a very centralized state, and the United States aren't. Talking again to the young people because the adults know this, of course. The way that you deal with problems such as growth and housing and transportation, we're all dealing with them in these different countries, in both countries, I should say. But the way that you go about doing this is so different, having lived there and studied the way that you deal with those policies, that it's something that we struggle with.
Now, I know Ryan is a very mature young man, but I know he looks a little young. But I have to boast a little bit about Ryan because he is a part of the mayor's Office of Policy and Innovation, and actually doing some really, really, I would say you're one of the youngish members of that shop, and doing some really, really interesting things, looking at performance metrics as a city. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it actually is a very, very important role for this mayor and for the city to understand. We can talk about all of the different policies we want to, but unless we measure how the city investments are actually making an impact, positive impact on people's lives, then we're not really understanding how we can make changes along the way.
So we try to pay attention not just to the funds that you give to a certain city department, and you say, please go out and do this work, and that's great. But also then you have to sort of say, in 6 months or in a year, you want to see have the investments that we've made, are they actually are they being seen in the community as good investments? Are they working? The obvious example we talk about are roads, because everyone uses roads. We spend a lot of money maintaining the roads, but how are the roads, what condition are they in? And that sounds a little boring to talk about roads, but if you don't have good roads, you can't do very much. And so that's just one example, but it's not just that, it's also how are the city's investments in, like I said earlier, housing policy. Are they working? Are people able to live in neighborhoods? Are people being, as she said earlier, being priced out? Are they not able to afford? Is the cost too much for them? So that it is an interesting policy area. Another one that you might be interested in that we're working on is privacy. This is something, a big deal, right? Digital, c'est la protection de la vie privée, that, as you know, in Europe.